to the podcast. Today I have a special guest. Her name is Jennifer Nagel. Am I saying that right?
You are.
Okay. And Jennifer is the Director of Training Development of the Satir Institute of the Pacific. And she was one of the supervisors at a training that I did a few years ago. And she's in private practice. She's an international trainer who's trained in China, Hong Kong, Kenya. And this is around the umbrella of the Satir Model and Transformational Systemic Therapy. She supervises and trains therapists and also provides a variety of different workshops and trainings for parents. And she's in private practice as well. And you're in BC. Which city are you in BC?
I'm in Surrey. Well, Vancouver, for those
Vancouver.
who are...
Yeah, so Vancouver, BC. And she's also written a great book called Magic in the Muck, Finding Grace in Chaos. So what a timely topic given everything that's going on with the coronavirus. And so I highly recommend that people check that out. So would you start us off with a grounding meditation to help us get centered and connected with each other, and to also help the audience connect with themselves as well?
Sure, I would love to. So I'd like to start by inviting everyone to just get comfortable wherever you're sitting right now, and just allow your body to move in a way that allows you to just be present with yourself. And then, to quote Virginia Satir, I'd like to invite you to close your beautiful eyes if it fits for you. Just bringing your attention to your breath first. Noticing the air as it goes in through your nose, down into your lungs and out into your bloodstream. Bringing every cell in your body what it needs to support your life right now. Just notice your breath as it goes in through your nose. Notice the coolness as you breathe in. And feel the warmth of the air as you exhale. And as you exhale, just feel your body releasing tension, releasing stress, releasing any negativity. Breathing in exactly what you need. Breathing in energy and vitality. Breathing out tension. And just notice if you can have some appreciation for your breath. And notice any areas of tension in your body right now. Knowing that tension is one way our bodies have of speaking to us. Just see if you can listen to your body in this moment. What is your tension saying? And just allow your breath to go to those areas of tension. And maybe add some love and caring to the breath. Bringing love and caring to those areas that need it right now. Again, noticing your breath as you breathe in, breathing in exactly what you need for this moment. And breathing out what you don't need. Just noticing your body wherever you are sitting. You can start to wiggle your toes and wiggle your fingers as you just experience all of you being fully present. And then when you're ready, You can just gently open your eyes, looking around, being here in this moment.
Thank you, Jennifer. As I was experiencing that meditation and reflecting on the word grace in the title of your book, and the way that you were expressing yourself through that meditation, I think grace is a very apt word to describe how I experience you and how I experienced you at the training that we did a few years ago, that I, as a participant. And I'm wondering, by way of starting, if I could read a few paragraphs from your book and then get you to reflect on this writing and on this word. Is that okay as a way of starting?
Sure. Yeah,
Okay.
sure. Let's do that.
What are moments of grace? They are those moments that find their way into our lives in the midst of chaos, that offer reprieve from the storm. The small miracles that connect one breath to the next. We recognize them immediately, yet do not always stop to appreciate them, to notice them and see them for what they are. Moments when the mountain doesn't seem so daunting, or moments to recognize what is happening, to pause, or simply to breathe. To fully experience and appreciate these moments of grace, we must fully experience and embrace life. This means we also need to fully experience and embrace the pain. It is through embracing the pain that we are most able to find those moments of grace. All right. So there's a lot packed into those two paragraphs. And
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you could share how you think and experience grace in your own life, and how that word what meaning it has in your life, grace.
Yeah. Even finding words to convey the meaning of grace isn't always easy to do. But what isn't easy, because it's such a, it is, for me and my experience of it, even as you were reading that paragraph, I have a full body experience that just brings me into a whole mixture of like physiological sensations and feeling warmth. I feel, even some tears behind my eyes, but they're tears of gratitude, because I think grace and gratitude really work together. So so for grace, when we're in the middle of chaos, even what's happening right now with the coronavirus, and especially when at first there was so much chaos happening, and stopping to find moments like where, again, it's about being present. I think when we're really present with ourselves and present with wherever we're at a moment in time, paying attention to what is helping me be here right now in this moment. There can be chaos all around me, but can I even breathe? Like we talk about the breath and breathing. Can I just notice like I'm able to breathe right now, or the air is fresh right now, or at this moment in time, I'm alive.
Yeah. No, I love that question. What's helping me be here right now? What's sustaining my life? And then that's something that we could bring in. It's like a window into experiencing gratitude and grace. Yeah,
definitely.
And do you find that beginning point starts to create an amplification of that kind of energy? Is that?
It does, and it shifts the whole, because there are moments where we all go through a lot of stress, or I know when I experience like stress and chaos, or even in my house, my kids are fighting, and so there's that whole like physiological response, or that whole reaction, or what I'm doing with that. And then in the pausing, it's almost like we need some of that chaos in order to fully appreciate those moments of grace. Otherwise, I think we would take it all for granted.
Yeah. No, there's a conversation, and I think one of the lines you have in the second paragraph is, "This means we also need to fully experience and embrace the pain." Right. So whether that's pain or chaos, I think So what's the dialogue in the way that you think about it? How does your grace interact with the chaos of life, and maybe how you're experiencing that with this pandemic?
Oh, that's a good question. um, so for me, so great. So another word that comes to me is peace. And so again, it's that, going back to Virginia Satir's famous quote, peace within, peace between, peace among. So grace also instills a peace within
Mm-hmm.
myself, um, and allows me to extend that to others, even when others may not be experiencing peace at the same time, but allows me to connect with others in a way that allows me to be present with them. So your question of grace and how I experience that, it
Mm-hmm.
really is being intentional with it, taking moments like at the start of my day. Can I look at what am I grateful for today? At the end of my day, what am I grateful for
Mm-hmm.
today? So the practice of gratitude, the practice of how do I still myself and center myself at the beginning of the day, or in moments where I start to feel the chaos building up.
Mm-hmm.
And then so part of it is, it's not just mind, because there is a even, putting my hand over my heart, and my one hand on my heart, one hand on my belly, just to still myself.
Mm-hmm.
um, and then experiencing the miracle of life. I'm just thinking, it's sunny outside here right now, and I'm hearing birds singing outside, and it really is to notice and appreciate how life keeps going on no matter what
Mm-hmm.
is happening.
Life keeps going on no matter what else might be happening. Yeah, because I think when
Mm-hmm.
there's problems, it's easy to focus on those things, and they come into the foreground, and everything
Mm-hmm.
goes out of our awareness.
Yeah.
But you're describing what sounds like a conscious activity and intention to bring um, into view as much of what is a miracle, or um, what is life in the moment. I guess in terms of relationships and with challenging moments, challenging situations, are there specific attitudes or stances that you take with challenging moments, maybe within personal or family? Are there, um, yeah, general stances that you take towards things? I'm thinking of Virginia's famous quote of, the problem isn't the problem is
Mm-hmm.
the coping with the problem. And there are these nuggets of wisdom that I look to in Virginia's body of work that are, um, they point us towards what you're describing. They point us towards peace. They point us towards gratitude. They point us towards life. And yeah, I wonder for you, as we're talking about grace, are there articulations of wisdom that you found helpful in these times? And also maybe in reference to some of the difficult times that you describe in your book,
Mm-hmm.
that point to, because I think of what you're describing as grace and peace. These are these transcendent energies. The words point to the energies.
Mm-hmm.
However, they start to emerge and then eventually become behaviors. You do something that looks like grace. But in between the energy at this level and the behavior at this level is this
Mm-hmm.
process of, okay, well, what's the thought? What's the belief? What's the attitude? So I
Mm-hmm.
think that, what Virginia did so well is, well, one, she embodied this deeper energy. It wasn't just technique. And in the way that that you work, and I think to work in a sustained way, and I know you get joy from your work, because I see it just as it shines through, and when I've seen you in various contexts. But I just wonder, given this technology, I think it would help if you could share, um, what are the wisdom pieces, or the attitudes, or the stances that help you manifest grace through action and through your relationships.
Mm-hmm. I think, well, if we going back to Virginia Satir's beliefs, they are so um, they really are the foundation for, I think, what helps me looking at. And I also, like, I absolutely know with every cell of my being that we all have the resources that we need for
Hmm.
survival and growth. So that's one.
Hmm.
And with that, knowing that we're human beings, and that we do the best we can with what we know.
Mm.
And so knowing that when we are in our, the patterns of coping, underneath it all, there's also gems and resources in how we cope as well. Even though it can be painful, if someone is in blaming mode, or someone is, giving up their needs for the sake of somebody else, there's a cost to all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But knowing underneath that we all have the capability of being caring and compassionate, of using assertiveness and being creative, and being able to problem solve. And so we all have those within us. So in the moments of when things are chaotic, I think one thing that helps me is really looking underneath the behavior. It isn't looking at what's happening in front of me right now. It's being curious about what else is going on underneath all this.
Mm-hmm.
And then responding to, like, what is the need or the yearning?
Right.
If people are arguing, often there's a yearning to be heard, to be connected. But so how can I respond to the yearning instead of reacting to the behavior?
No, I love that. So you're highlighting at least three things. One, we all have the resources to survive and to cope with what we're facing, and not only to survive, but to grow. So we have that capability and we have that capacity. I guess what I would say is when we have that energy to get there. But one of the things I've been thinking about is things like communication do require a learning process and skill. And
Mm-hmm.
so while we may have we have the capacity, the capability comes through practice. And I think one of the things that you're describing is reconnecting to that deep need and the yearning is, I think, the energy to allow that learning to happen. And so I think that's so important to connect to what's underneath the surface of this behavior. That in and of itself is a skill, to imagine feelings, to imagine expectations, to imagine then deeper still the yearnings. And the third thing you mentioned was we're all human beings doing the best that we can with what we know or what we've learned. So those survival stances are limited, but we can learn to do more. I guess there's an energy, as you describe these things, there's an energy of trusting, because it's trusting, and this may be tied into grace, because these are not things, they're not tangible, right? They're not like this table in front of me, that's not like when I drink water. These are resources that you're talking about that are invisible to the touch, invisible in some ways to the eyes. How can we connect to our resources, Jennifer? What do you think?
That's a big question, Jim.
Yeah.
Okay, how can we connect to our resources? Well, even in the, I'm going to bring it back to the breath too, because even I think first is becoming aware, like notice when for me, it's when do I notice myself starting to react to something? Or when do I start noticing that I'm feeling uncomfortable, or whether it's in my body, whether my heart's pounding or my stomach is clenched, and when I become aware of that, then it's can I pause and take a breath? When we take a breath, we're oxygenating our body and bringing oxygen to our brains. And it really does allow us to slow down and pause instead of going into that reactive amygdala kind of place.
Yeah.
It allows us to really, and then to pause and then it's being curious about what's happening inside for me right now, and being curious about what might be happening if you're with somebody else in relationship or whatever. Be curious about what's going on for them. So how do we connect with our resources?
So that's good. I mean, the curiosity, maybe we can concretize that a little bit more.
Yeah.
So what's happening inside of me? What's the kind of exploration that you would do? Like if you could be on the shoulder of someone that you're working with in the context of a client or a friend, what kind of curious questions, or what kind of things would you have someone wonder about? And and would you likely start with yourself rather than starting with the other person? Is that usually what you would suggest? What's going on in me?
I think,
Or does it
yeah,
try to change?
it can be so easy to get caught up with what's going on with somebody else. And then, so looking at how can I own my experience first?
Mhm.
So questions I might ask if I had, on my shoulder or whatever, I'd be
If
curious. Okay,
if you're
what's
if you're
happening?
if congruent Jennifer was on
If
your
I'm
shoulder
congruent,
all the time,
yes.
what would she be saying? Maybe you should think about this. Yeah.
Okay. Well, and no particular sequence, but I would notice what's happening in my body right
Okay.
now. I'd
Yeah.
notice what's going on there, and then I'd be okay. And what's happening in my feelings? How am I feeling in this moment?
Hmm.
I'm feeling frustrated, or I'm feeling sad, or I'm feeling angry. What feelings are coming up for me right now? I'd be curious about my emotions, and I'd be looking at what meaning I'm making of what's
Hmm.
happening right now. And I'd own it like it's my meaning. So it could be something else, or it could be this, because the meaning we make about something directly impacts our emotions. And
Okay. So
yeah.
let's walk through an example. So, um, you know, my wife we have this like large Brita water filter, and so we both don't like putting it back into the fridge because it's large and bulky, and I think we're both afraid of spilling water everywhere. And so I see it there, and I was, oh, she left it out again. And I might make a meaning of, she always expects me to do everything.
Beware of the always and the
Yes.
never.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
She always, yes, exactly.
Mhm.
So that is that an example of there's a feeling and then I make a meaning and then that's
Mhm.
kind of thought.
Yeah.
She always needs me to do everything.
you
Um,
know and you could play a game with yourself and saying, okay, well, but what else could it mean?
uh-huh.
you know it, um
Uh-huh.
but if we bring it down to like even like in the moment, where we don't have time to kind of go through systematically and look at this all these layers,
Mm,
the key things that I look at for myself: what's happening in my feelings, how am I feeling, um, what is it that I'm needing at this moment?
mm-hmm.
Because when we're reacting, it's usually about there's some need that isn't being met, or we're trying to get our needs met in a way that isn't working for us. And
Mm,
so when I think of like my kids and they're fighting and I'm trying to separate them and they're not listening to me, and I'm getting frustrated, my need is I want them to listen to me. I want to be heard.
mm, mm-hmm.
My need is also I want peace. I want there to be peace. So I'm looking at what is my need, and then I can also be curious about what's going on for them, um, and what's going on for them. And but it really does start with what's happening for me, because I can
Okay.
only be in charge of how I respond.
Mm,
I can't control what other people are doing. I can only be in charge of what I'm doing in response to what's happening, or
yeah.
how I want to respond.
So there's two nuggets that I want to pull out. The first thing um you're that you're describing, which I think is a belief, and I think it's a living belief. I'm starting to think of beliefs as living, as like
Hmm.
as alive in a way. It's kind
Yes,
of a
I
weird
love
thing to
that.
think, but
No, it
if you
makes
think
sense.
about ideas or beliefs as alive, if they're embedded in you enough that they shift your behavior, then they're as much living as your heart. So one of the living beliefs that I am hearing you articulate is, I own my experience and I
Hmm.
own my needs. So that's like a premise. That's a
Yeah.
foundational I own. And when I'm working with couples, well, with anyone, that's one of the primary messages. Like this language of "you make me feel."
Yeah.
We've got to get
Yes.
rid of that language.
Hmm.
Each person contributes to an event and even contributes their behavior, but it's our nervous system. It's what comes out of us that creates our own feeling, and that's very empowering. Um, and the second thing that you were describing is when you go down, I want to be heard in the example, and peace. When you connect to, let's say, that yearning, I would describe peace as a yearning. Would you? Is
Hmm.
that a
Definitely.
safe description? Okay,
Definitely.
so and then peace starts to be this transcendent energy that's transcending the survival coping behavior or the feelings even, and
Hmm.
then become the energy that starts to be able to transform things. So it's this owning, And then by owning and really identifying my needs seems to open a window to bringing in an energy that is the resource that's already there, but just
Exactly.
not in the foreground yet. And then I think that starts to dance with the experience and with behavior.
Hmm. Beautiful. Yeah, and so it's owning it and embodying it. So when I'm in touch with peace,
Mm-hmm.
and then when I start to exude that energy out into the room, even if it's not a spoken thing, it's an energetic,
Right.
that has an influence on what's happening in
Yeah.
any system.
Yeah. 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 I think, and I'm always, because I've had conversations with our friend and colleague John Banman, and as I'm hearing, and people use the word energy a lot, and
Hmm.
my struggle with that word is it's almost too vague to be useful.
It is.
So one of the things, and as we're talking, and one of my challenges is, so when we talk about an energy, let's say in this instance we're talking about the energy of peace. Um, I think we can concretize peace such that it's seen. So can you
Hmm.
describe what, like, and also grace, maybe they're related, grace and peace. How does
Mm-hmm.
how does grace and peace as a living energy or living yearning impact the way you think, the way you behave, the way your body is? Maybe can you um, walk us through that? Like what, because you sound very body aware. So
Mm.
does that make sense as
Yeah,
something to
yeah.
illustrate for people?
Yeah, I mean, the first word that comes to me, and maybe I'll see if I can concretize this a bit more, is the word flow or harmony. So if I start with body,
Hmm.
when I'm at peace or experiencing grace for those moments, even as we talk about it, there is a calmness and a stillness
Hmm.
with vitality. So
Hmm.
it's not a flatline stillness. It's a stillness. I think of like I don't know what I'm thinking of, but like water. Still waters run deep. But um, there's movement within the stillness. But it is yeah. I'm feeling grounded. So as in, well, both literally and feet on the ground, feeling connected to the earth. There's also, it's not just about what I'm experiencing within me. I'm experiencing a connection to the greater, and we can use different words, like to the universe, to something bigger, the connection to the oneness that we are all connected. So how do I describe that experience? But it is that I experience myself as part of a whole,
Hmm.
not a
Hmm.
island.
I think that owning, coming back to that idea of ownership, is centering and grounding in and of itself. Because if I'm imagining, like, okay, if I'm reacting to something, my consciousness is now projected out. It's like I'm angry at this
Mhm.
person, I'm angry at the situation. I've kind of left my own feet for a second. And Virginia described, often one of her primary focuses was, um, helping, like, people come into the world from parents that feel or experience that they have holes in them, and that there's an emptiness that they need to fill in, and oftentimes they're filling them in with the children that they bring into the world, and then those children start to live with this perception or experience that they have holes in them,
Mhm.
HOLE. And then she would describe that a lot of her work was helping people understand that they were WHOLE, that they were already
Mhm.
whole. And it's pointing to what you've already described, which is, okay, if I'm whole, that means that I have all the resources within me to cope,
Mhm.
or I'm worthy just as I am. I'm worthy of my life just as I am. And so I think, one, the ownership of, okay, my experience, my feelings, and my behavior comes out of me as mine. I can own that, and my needs and my yearnings are mine. Take a breath and then kind of land back into my body and to breathe, and then to face and to also imagine the yearnings in someone else. I could see as a very much more peaceful, but also still vital way of interacting. Because as
Mhm.
we know, when we're locked into fight, flight, and freeze, we lose our vitality. We lose
Exactly.
our higher nature.
Mhm.
So yeah, I wonder how that fits for you and what you would add to that.
Oh, it fits beautifully. I mean, and I love the whole, Virginia Satir. Really, all we need to do is add the W because we are whole.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And the Satir model is such an add-in model, right? So add in the W and we're
Yes, yes, yeah,
already whole.
yeah.
Um, yeah, and I think the other word that comes to me is compassion. Like, so when can I hold compassion for myself and compassion for others, when we're in touch with the yearnings, it allows me to have much more compassion
Mm,
for the other person
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
as well.
mm-hmm. Yeah, and when we're describing the difference between the survival energy is about my survival. So it's
Hmm.
very egocentric. And
Yes.
not that there's anything wrong with that. It's good to make sure that our bodies survive
Hmm.
and we maintain and protect the integrity of our bodies. Uh, But words like compassion and peace and grace are about the whole situation. They're about
Hmm.
me, they're about you, they're about the
Hmm.
environment. Um, and I think what you were talking about with breath is so important because we can't get to those higher energies without first grounding in our own body. So it
Exactly.
seems to be a
Hmm.
very important beginning step for
Yeah.
people. Um, okay. Um, how's this conversation for you so far?
I'm loving this
Yeah.
conversation.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
I just
It's feeding my vitality and my my
okay.
life energy.
Great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great. So maybe I can get to question one.
Question one, are we not there yet?
No. Um, I wonder what influence has Virginia Satir's work had on you personally and professionally? What impacts has she had? And I guess the follow up to that is, what did you experience that was different from other models?
Oh, okay. I have to shift gears here. Okay.
Hmm.
Well, first of all, I mean, we're not really shifting gears though, are we? Because I think what we've been talking about up until now embodies how Virginia Satir has influenced
Yeah,
my
yeah.
life
Maybe you
personally
can
and
articulate
professionally.
that. Yeah, like what?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I didn't know about the Satir model until I was in graduate school, doing my master's degree. And John Banman was actually my clinical supervisor for my practicum. Up until that point, all the other models I had learned, there was just something missing for me. I really didn't have a sense of, I didn't feel grounded in any particular theory. And as soon as I learned the Satir model and the foundations of the Satir model, for me, it just opened up, both personally and professionally. First, it gave me an umbrella or a framework where I could fit in everything that I had already learned about therapy up until that point.
Mm, hmm.
And and personally, it just gave me a framework for how I wanted to be and how I want to live in this world and with my family.
Yeah, that's really cool because one of the things that John Banman said to me when we spoke was that he thinks of Virginia's work as more of a life model rather than just a family
Mm-hmm.
therapy model, and it
Yes.
seems to be what you're describing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you've used this word grounded a lot in our conversation, and so there must be there, it's obviously very significant to you. You said I never felt grounded in other models, and when you were saying that, this image of, the story of like the six men and the elephant,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yes.
it's like what when you're learning all these other theories, it was like this is a piece, this is,
Mm-hmm.
this is one piece of the elephant, this is the trunk, this is the nose, this is the tail, this is the, you know so is it that you were able to kind of put the spectrum of experience in in that framework? I mean, I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, that's a great metaphor of the elephant, actually. Yeah, because all these other pieces that I had learned, well, and some I felt weren't deep enough or experiential enough,
Mhm,
but they were like different pieces or different parts of the elephant without knowing what the whole looked like or could look like. So
mhm, mhm.
and so then it's just, yeah, it just, I guess the word scattered also comes, so I see the opposite of like ground or a foundation of a framework to
Mhm.
look look at everything. um the Satir model really allowed, I had all these tools from my toolkit, but without knowing really like which tool, like what is this for and why do I want to use this tool? Whereas the Satir model really, the experiential part of it, the transformational part of it, and seeing the whole system and how really it is seeing the whole elephant, the whole picture.
Yeah. So maybe I can ask you a question about tools, because
Okay.
there's an assumption in tools. You take your car to the shop and you use tools when something's broken. So there's an assumption there.
Okay.
And I know that there's a direction, there's let's say it's a growth model. And there's this idea that I know you guys teach, which is to be positively directional. So how are the tools, how do you perceive or experience the tools within the Satir model as different than maybe other models from other therapeutic systems? Yeah, are they different?
Well, right away, when you use the word tools, I think I want to change that word with the Satir model, because in the Satir model, we also talk about vehicles for change.
Okay.
And to me, a tool is let's take a hammer or a or a wrench, and here, let's do this to fix like the car parts. Let's fix what's broken. Whereas, or can we look at vehicles or processes of change? What kind of processes can we use for change
Nice.
in a positive direction? It's a lot more dynamic and fluid, I think, than what tool am I going to pull out here?
Well, there's like being done to, you're lying on the surgical
Yeah.
table and someone's doing something to you, or
Mm-hmm.
you're alive and you're being taken on a journey. You have a guide,
Yes.
and that's
Mm-hmm.
that's more the image that I have with how
Yeah.
Virginia, she was literally holding people's hands and saying,
Literally.
let's be brave together and
Mm-hmm.
let's look.
Yeah.
And I think to your point of, if the tool is embedded in a system that is connected to beliefs about pathology or what's wrong or how you need to be fixed, then that informs how that tool is going to be used, and it's going to inform
Mm-hmm.
how you're going to perceive the people that you're with. And that's something that inspired me with Virginia's work, because it was a framework that highlighted the tools in a different way. Their use would be different and sometimes irrelevant. So yeah, I think this is a really important topic for people that are consuming, let's say, mental health resources, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
I've had conversations with people where they feel that corporatization of mental health services, where it's about uh, simply reducing symptoms, or how that's experienced by people that I've worked with, is that their feelings or their experience is somehow in not substantiated or not worthy or not real in some way. Um, and if they just use the right tool or technique, they could just you know get rid of it. So I think there's a kind of profound respect that exists in the way that Virginia worked, and I wonder how that fits in terms of how you teach and how you work and how that shows up, and if you feel, because Virginia had to fight against a lot of the major theories of the time and ways of doing things. I wonder how that tension has existed in your life, because you've described it in your education and between the things that you were learning and how Virginia's work fit. How do you reconcile Virginia Satir's work with other therapy models? Right? What do you take? What do you hold on to, and what do you let go of?
Oh, well, with Virginia Satir's work, I hold on to all of it. The whole, um, with, I don't even know that there is a for me anyway, for me, the Satir model, anything that I've learned that fits into, we talk about the 5 essential elements, we talk about positively directional and change focused, systemic, experiential, and the use of self. So any other models or techniques or things that I've learned from other models that fit into those 5 essential elements, there is no need to reconcile, because I think the number one important thing, not thing, that's the wrong word. The one important aspect is how we use ourselves. So who I am as a therapist, who you are as a therapist, like how we use ourselves. And it's such a relational, it is a relational process with our clients. So there is that, I'm not doing anything to my clients. I'm doing things collaboratively with my clients. And we are on this journey together. And as long as it's a very respectful model, I think, you know, and it is a growth model, not a hierarchical, where one is the expert. Our clients are our clients' expertise and our expertise as far as how we choreograph our dance together. It's an ever evolving, like every session is a kind of exciting, because it is a dance.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think when you describe those core elements to the model, the use of self, positively directional, I wonder if we could focus on, they're all essential, I understand, but maybe we could focus on one. And I think that relates to,
They are.
You know, what is a central concept for this podcast and in my work is self-connection. So can you describe what self-connection means to you? Yeah, maybe that's, and how you connect to yourself.
Yeah, so self-connection for me. So and it, again, it's not a first I do this and then I do this. It is a constant. So before every session, I take a moment to check in with myself, whether it's I close my eyes, I maybe put my hand over my heart, I take a few breaths, I check in with, and I try to clear or let go of anything that, so I need to allow myself to be fully present. So it's preparing, how I prepare myself to receive and give, and receive with my clients. Connection with self also at the beginning of my day, when I wake up in the morning, spending that time by myself before the children wake up or before anything. It's just whether taking time in silent meditation just to be. So, and then if we're looking at in terms of therapy, when I'm with my clients, I'm also monitoring what is going on inside of me when I'm with my clients. And really, and this is what we might get into too much here, but looking at what's mine and what am I picking up on that from my clients. So I'm using my own body responses and to be curious about what's going on with my clients.
Yeah.
So use of self is, how am I using my whole self?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that time to connect to yourself, the way that you're describing it, makes it clearer what's mine. Right? I think it comes back to that word that we were talking about of owning yourself, or owning your experience. And I know Virginia talked about when we do our work, and you know, she would have people doing these 30-day long trainings, process communities, because it was her hope that people that were facilitating change processes would be safe themselves, that they would be, certainly not inflicting any more harm. And I think when you have that awareness of what's mine, what belongs to my client, or you don't take on that energy, and oftentimes people will ask me, you know, as a therapist, don't you get burnt out? Or, you know, and I say, no, I get energized by my work. And I wonder if you feel the same, and if this, what you're describing, isn't a part of that helps you sustain yourself and sustain your energy.
Yeah, I definitely feel energized when I'm with my clients. And I think that is and it comes also from that belief and that knowing that our clients have the resources that they need to survive. So I don't carry the burden of responsibility for I have to fix this, or I have to do something. It's more like I have to be something. I have to be present. So my responsibility is to provide the conditions for us to do the work that we're going to do together.
I love that.
And that energizes me. It's exciting. It's fun.
Yeah. And I think that like the doing that comes from that energy of being, how do I want to be as a human being? How do I want to be related to you? One that models something. It models a respect. It models a grace that we're talking about. It models a way of being in a loving connection, a loving, caring connection that affects each other on multiple levels. And I think we're obviously doing something. We're not just sitting silently with our clients, but yeah.
Oh, Zen.
Yeah. I'm patting myself on the back for doing a really good job of being with you, and that's it. Yeah.
I'm just being here.
Yeah. Do you have some encouraging words about
No, it's okay.
how people might emphasize or connect to self or the state of being that you're describing, you're connecting to now?
I would just encourage people to, even right now, as if they're listening to this, just to pause, like really take moments throughout the day to pause, noticing exactly where you are at a moment in time, and list, like, even, what are you grateful for in this moment? Being grateful, and finding those moments. I'm gonna go, finding grace in the chaos. So those moments of grace that we talked about at the beginning, what that looks like for you, even if you're in the middle of a really tough situation. In my book, I wrote about when my husband was diagnosed with cancer, and he's okay now, just so everything worked out okay. But those moments of, hey, at this moment in time, I can breathe. At this moment in time, where I can be in the forest and appreciate nature. At this moment in time, I'm alive. At this moment in time, my husband is alive, and he still is. But each moment by moment, what can you be grateful for? And I think that's so.
Yeah, I guess
that's what's helped me get through, and with this chaos of the.
I guess when we're stuck in a vortex of anxiety or depression or severe anger, what you're saying makes sense. However, it's not easy to do. And
no.
How would you encourage someone when they're in that state? And I imagine that you're in that state when you were dealing with your husband's diagnosis of cancer. What helped you get there? What helped you return to that place of gratitude, of being in the moment?
Well, one of there's a few things that helped me get there. I think one that pushed me to get there, that really pushed me to get there, was the fact that I was pregnant at the time, and knowing that I needed to get there for the sake of, I didn't want to transmit that fear and anxiety onto my unborn child. So in a way, that really pushed me to, okay, I need to really take care of myself here for the sake of my child. So, but having said that, you don't need to be pregnant to get there. But then, so through that, again, the breathing, I think first off I did was just breathe, really, and focus on the breath. And the other huge piece is nature. You know, even when we first got the diagnosis, we went straight to the forest and straight to our favorite trees and just getting, I'm going to use the word grounded again, but literally grounded, like feet on the earth, grounded, connecting with nature.
Well, trees are good role
So
models
nature
for
was a
that.
huge part of getting there.
Yeah. You know,
They
Jennifer,
are.
yeah,
Yeah.
one of the thoughts that
So trees and breathing.
trees and breathing, um, you know, I think there's a couple of things that are coming up as you're describing this, and I think it's really important, and I'm glad we're touching upon this within our first, hopefully the first of many conversations we can have, because I think there's a lot that you and I can connect on. But I think in order to get to that place of gratitude is you have to believe on some level there's always something to be grateful for. I think like, and it's an act of faith to get there, but if I have the belief there is always something that I can be grateful for, then you can strive towards life. And that might be the crack that allows the water to flow in. And the second thing, when you were describing being pregnant, is, and what I would say to people based off of that is, you may not be pregnant like Jennifer was, but you are pregnant with life inside of you. You know, you have your life, you have your heart, you have your being. So to imagine, you know, you're imbued with life just by the nature of you having a heart and having a body that's breathing and alive. And for whatever that's worth for people that are going through, who knows what untold kinds of suffering, that you, because of that fact of life, that you have nature inside of you, you're worthy. And in that, if it can be the perhaps a doorway into, you know, if you have life, then it's not just that you need to feel these things, but that just as you needed to protect the unborn child, we also need to protect the life within us. We need to protect the yearnings that are desiring to come out and to be manifested in the world. And so I just imagine, as you're describing that, what would it be like if we protected our core self to the level that you protected your unborn child, and treated it with that level of respect and dignity? What changes would happen for people, even though, in spite of the suffering, in spite of the internal and external suffering, that you have life at the core of you by the fact of your heartbeat and of your breathing. And it's worthy of protecting, and not just protecting, but of full expression and full vitality. So thank you for sharing that. I think it's helped me get to
That is
something.
so beautiful.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah, great. So why don't we
I
stop there for
love
today?
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
why don't we stop there for today? And
Yeah. Great place to stop.
yeah, and is there a way that people can get in touch with you, with your work, with the Institute? What's the best way to get in contact with you?
Yeah, well, they can, well, a couple ways through the Institute, which is satirpacific.org. I also have a website, Jennifer Nagel Counseling, spelled with 2 L's.com.
Okay. Can you describe what the Institute
And through
does?
my website, they can direct, there's my, yeah, the Satir Institute of the Pacific provides education and training for of the Satir model. And it's also a community of, we want to be a welcoming, intentional community to promote Virginia Satir's teachings in the world.
Wonderful.
So we have several, yeah.
Great. And I'll post some links in the show notes. And yeah, I want to say thank you for being with me and being and creating a connection through the internet, and I feel your energy, and I feel your grace and your wisdom, and I'm really, really grateful that we had this time.